I never thought Horikoshi would actually do it, but this week's chapter is genuinely something so shocking that I still can't believe it happened. Finally, the stakes within My Hero Academia have been risen, though some fans may not like the cost. Chapter 362, titled Light Fades to Rain, continues with Tamaki and his massive cannon attack. Last week we got this beautiful 2-page spread of Tamaki and his Nejire enhanced cannon. As he prepares to shoot Shigaraki, Tamaki thinks back to the words of encouragement he has received from Fat Gum, Kirishima, Tetsu, and most importantly, Mirio. Tamaki even compares what they say to blinding light or a great treasure, and just like that we get more Tamaki development. The big three have been seeing a lot of spotlight these last few chapters, and it's been great. Tamaki recognizes that he wasn't able to really accept the compliments of his fellow heroes, and how those words felt like a burden. Until now. Now, Tamaki sees them as the strength he needs in this fight. This man has really come a long way, and you gotta love it. From there, a massive plasma beam is fired off by the cannon Tamaki created, which we know to be Cornucopia Combination Plasma Cannon. Truly, it is such a big moment for such a timid hero. He has grown from someone so insecure to a hero taking on the ultimate evil that is Shigaraki. Unfortunately, well, more like unsurprisingly, it does absolutely nothing to Shigaraki. He practically swallows the insane attack with his mutated arm. It is a harrowing situation that reminds the heroes and us that they are fighting a losing battle. At the end of the day, Shigaraki is more monster than man anymore. In spite of that, Mirio is still able to land a punch on Shigaraki. Admirably, he is fighting Shigaraki in close quarters, considering what the villain is capable of while quirkless. But let's get back to the fight. Tamaki's beam is so powerful, it physically pushes the arena. Strong enough to move a mobile battlefield, but does absolutely nothing against Shigaraki. His durability is ridiculous. Smoke covers the battlefield from Tamaki's cannon, while we see the big three all in different shots of defeat. Nejire looks battered and exhausted, questioning why Tamaki's strongest attack had no effect. Interestingly enough, there is a clearer shot of her torso. And her wound isn't Gran Torino levels of bad, thankfully. She was pretty much at the top of my death list, so good to see that she's okay. Meanwhile, Tamaki is pushed back by one of Shigaraki's tendrils, and Mirio himself is utilizing his quirk while also receiving wounds himself. They aren't like Nejire or Tamaki's, but it only shows the dire straits they are in. I must admit that seeing the big three so dejected like this is really setting the tone for this fight, especially because of the flashbacks we saw of them in the last chapter. Nejire's development especially cemented this. She is continuing to fight despite how exhausted she must be because of her quirk. And I'm gonna be honest, I really wish these guys could have been looking cool together, not against Shigaraki. Why is the one time we get to see the big three actually do their job and be the big three up against a guy who they cannot even phase? It's like Miruko, being as powerful as she is, having her first fight against a crowd of high-end Nomu. There's just no winning that. Regardless, it is a race against time until Deku can arrive. Even Shigaraki knows that. He keeps up with his routine hero mocking. Shigaraki then calls them delusional for believing they have a chance against him. And you know what, as rude as he is, Shigaraki is right. He's easily fighting off multiple heroes while quirkless. If he had his quirks, multiple at that, we'd be remiss to even call it a fight to begin with. And so I am genuinely surprised that we haven't seen a major death by now. And sadly, this chapter may change that. Somehow Bakugo is able to stand again. This shocks everyone, including Shigaraki and Best Jeanist. Jeanist calls for him, but Bakugo simply tells his mentor to take care of everyone. What we all know by now to be very chilling words when it comes to the realm of shonen. Then we see a heavily injured, manic Bakugo, who says he still has a fight to win and mentions Deku. This dialogue from Bakugo actually means a lot. Instead of referring to his childhood rival as Deku, Bakugo calls him Izuku. Despite the stakes presented, seeing this growth is something I will never get tired of. Meanwhile, Best Jeanist is still doing his best to stop Bakugo. He calls out to the young hero and even prepares to restrain Bakugo with his quirk. Not only is this a defining moment for Bakugo, but for Jeanist as well. We have always seen him as reserved and professional as possible. Now he is practically begging his student to back down from Shigaraki, despite encouraging him to rejoin the fight previously. The current reaction from Best Jeanist is such a big turn from his usual, so things have really and truly hit the fan. And unsurprisingly, things will continue to get worse and worse as the chapter continues on. Suddenly, Bakugo moves so fast he is blitzing Shigaraki. And the way it's drawn, it reminds me of the twinkles within One for All. Whether or not that's an honest coincidence, we'll have to find out. However, that is not the most important thing to notice. It's how Shigaraki reacts to Bakugo. Firstly, the young hero is able to literally predict Shigaraki's movements in battle, which ties in perfectly to what we saw a few chapters back. Bakugo was analyzing the way Shigaraki fights. Originally, I believed it was to find his weakness. Now it is clear Bakugo is watching Shigaraki to learn how to counter him. Speaking of, everyone is shocked that Bakugo was able to avoid Shigaraki so effortlessly. Then we are reminded of Bakugo's quirk and learn some new cluster bomb information. But before we jump into that, I would like to point out that Bakugo is so fast, he moved before Shigaraki could react. Insane reflexes! His speed seems to be as if it may be the hero's saving grace. Sadly, his movement is due to cluster bomb side effect. From the narration, it is clear Bakugo himself wasn't aware of this side effect. Due to his explosive sweat being so condensed, there is a massive strain on Bakugo's sweat glands. Because Bakugo continued to add to the strain, the condensed sweat dispersed throughout his body, needing an exit. This explains what we saw several chapters ago. Bakugo didn't have a quirk awakening. This was cluster. He has become like a ticking time bomb. The explosions going on within his body are exactly why he is able to outmaneuver Shigaraki. Honestly, this side effect of cluster reminds me of what All Might first told Deku, that One For All could literally explode his body. We are seeing something similar with Bakugo, except it is small explosions literally destroying him from the inside out. In fact, Bakugo admits his whole body is throbbing from pain. He feels as if his body is literally falling apart, but it is also improving. The improvement statement is odd considering the pain he is going through, however, I wonder if it is foreshadowing for an awakening. Either way, even Bakugo sees the parallel between himself and Deku. He wonders if this immense pain and going beyond his limits is exactly what Deku has been doing this entire time. After all, Deku is destroying his own limbs in the pursuit of Plus Ultra. And it's not just that. Bakugo wonders if he will ever reach Deku's level. He sees Deku above him, accepts it, and sympathizes with him. And truly, a Bakugo fan could not ask for a better panel to display Bakugo's growth. The question shows so much character development on his end. Interestingly enough, the panel in which Bakugo wonders if he'll amount to Deku is a close-up of Bakugo's face. While it appears he may have lost an eye, we can see his remaining pupil now resembles a pattern of cluster. Again, are we close to a quirk awakening? If not, it's certainly a cool effect. Yet that question is going to have to wait. Shigaraki sees Bakugo's speed and is angered, but it's more than that. Shigaraki is losing his composure, which is rare. Shigaraki has been gloating and in control of the battlefield this entire brawl. The young hero's speed can only remind Shigaraki of one thing: the second One For All user. And something tells me All For One really struggled against the second. He is so focused on Bakugo, all he can see is the second. Talk about a ghost from his past. So yeah, all those theories about Bakugo being connected to the second user, hey, they may not be 100% correct, but there was a connection nonetheless. I will say that this has me leaning towards the ancestor side of the spectrum, however. Anyway, Shigaraki is so distraught and it is written all over his face. The parallel also causes Shigaraki to have a bit of a tantrum. He sees Bakugo as average, someone not worth his time because of All For One's obsession with One For All users. Simply overcome with rage and his arm posed to attack, Shigaraki harshly told Bakugo to die. Then we get a visual treat. There's this amazing art of an angry Shigaraki and a cool, calm, collected, cluster-eyed Bakugo. Two sides battling it out, not to mention it is refreshing to see Shigaraki so angry. This scene also proves Bakugo's eye isn't merely an accident. Something is happening. We just don't know what yet. Now just before impact, Bakugo envisions All Might's vestige and himself. Though Bakugo is dressed in his UA uniform, and they are in a space that is unknown to us. This white space is neither the area between All For One and One For All we saw during the war, nor the Vestige world. Bakugo and the Vestige of All Might are somewhere completely different. It's been a while since we've seen All Might's Vestige, so this will be interesting without a doubt. The Vestiges in their world are always so interesting, although regrettably, there is no new lore this time around. Instead, Bakugo looks confused, but then remembers something. He sheepishly tells the Vestige, which Bakugo immediately recognizes as All Might, talk about odd, that he wanted his All Might trading card signed. But because of how they met and the events surrounding them, he never quite got a chance to ask. Honestly, truthfully, genuinely, when this scene was leaked, I knew this chapter would be golden. Bakugo is so vulnerable right now. It is perhaps the most human he has ever been. Plus, it reminds us that Bakugo is just a kid. Despite the fact that he is fighting the big bad that is Shigaraki, Bakugo still admires people and looks up to them. In his final moments, all he can think about is getting All Might's autograph. I could gush about this forever, but let's talk about what else we see. Bakugo also has a flashback of him and Deku as children. Really, this is a look back on Bakugo's growth as a character. We have come so far from the little bully we saw in the beginning. This chapter is clearly for Bakugo fans. Unfortunately though, that sentiment isn't held for long. After that interaction between Bakugo and All Might's vestige, we are taken immediately back into the fight. Tamaki, a bloody Miruko, and Nejire all attack Shigaraki at once. Meanwhile, it looks as if Mirio was attempting to grab Bakugo. He had to phase through both Bakugo and Shigaraki instead. The threads of Genus grab Bakugo as well as seemingly secure Shigaraki so that 2/3 of the big three and Miruko can attack. Finally, we are seeing the heroes work together in harmonic sync. If only this had happened sooner, but it is worth the wait. That aside, there is tragedy in this chapter. Regardless of the multitude of attacks and teamwork involved, Shigaraki manages to stab Bakugo, and this attack successfully destroys Bakugo's gear on his back. It is insanely powerful, but just as that happens, multiple weather reports come in from the Kanto Chubu Kansai regions. The reports are all the same. Clouds have appeared in the sky. This is unexpected considering it was clear beforehand. What adds to this mystery is the cause for these clouds. It is reported that a fast change in temperature, specifically heat rising, is the reason for a cloudy day. We also see civilians comment that it is going to rain. The temperature paired with Bakugo create all sorts of theories, but those will surely get their own videos. In between the news report is Bakugo as he goes flying from Shigaraki's attack. Best Genius tries to catch a student, and you can really see how shaken up he is from all this. After all, it's like when All Might saw Deku during the war arc. To add insult to Bakugo's injury, there's also Shigaraki's own haunting words. He states Bakugo was only replaying their fight from before, so why would he think this time would be any different? We also learn that Shigaraki's body has fully become one. As he puts it, the Demon Lord's body is now fully realized. Clearly, it is a new entity between All For One and Shigaraki speaking. Dust settles as we see a completely diabolical Shigaraki. Neither of his eyes have pupils, and he looks absolutely nightmarish. To match his looks, Shigaraki also declares his story begins right here. And I gotta be honest, final boss music definitely played in my head once I read that line. I knew the heroes were in trouble before, but now with a fully merged Shigaraki with no Deku in sight, things are disastrous. On the flip side, there is a panel of Bakugo's mom. She remarks that Bakugo hates rain. But right after that is one of the most heartbreaking panels we have ever seen with this series. Every hero present from Best Genius to Monoma is in utter disbelief as they see Bakugo with a huge gaping wound. That explosive pressure finally made its way out, and right out of his heart, his beating, now bleeding, heart. Bakugo really cannot catch a break. Last war arc we saw him as a human skewer, now it is this explosive heart moment. Either way, this definitely had me on the edge of my seat. This entire arc has been so great so far, but I did not think Horikoshi would maim, if not possibly kill, someone as big as Bakugo. Not only that, but Best Genius is the one who now sees the mortally wounded Bakugo. It is such a twisted moment with such beautiful symbolism at that I love Horikoshi for it. We have this 2-page spread that could just make anyone tear up. Bakugo is lying peacefully on the grass, but his chest and face are covered in blood. And the wound on his chest is a massive gaping hole. His eyes look lifeless, and there is no single cluster. This might really and truly be the end for Bakugo. He has received nothing but punishment from Shigaraki, and on the opposite side of that, it appears Shigaraki has achieved his goal. The infamous villain had recently mentioned that he wanted to leave the corpse of Bakugo for Deku. Shigaraki wanted to force Deku to go feral from rage, and I fear an actually dead Bakugo will do just that. And now what is that next to the fallen hero? His All Might trading card that he wanted signed. Horikoshi, you're a cruel man. You had this man hold on to this trading card all this time, like hoping, maybe this is the moment, I show All Might this card and get it signed. And now it is covered in blood by the creature, the entity that is arguably closest to All Might in his prime. Wow. Death doesn't happen in My Hero Academia often, but when it does, it hits hard. I never saw Horikoshi killing off Bakugo, so this chapter has been nothing but a wild card. Truly, if we are talking about My Hero Academia during and past the overall arc, this is peak right now. The violence, the gore, the fights, the stakes, the casualties, the depravity. It is all up there at a 10. Horikoshi is not disappointing. And I know a bunch of you are hoping Horikoshi says psych in a couple of chapters from now, but I must say that I do hope that this is permanent because this is really impactful the way it is. And there is still so much meaningful stuff that we can do with this from here regardless. Shonen Jump magazine is going to be on break next week, but best believe we are going to be holding you guys over with plenty of content when it comes to all this insanity here on the channel. So please stick around, make sure that you are subscribed and like the video while you're here. As always, I'm Slice of Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.